afternoon. You're watching Business World Live. I'm Jes Delos Santos. Let's take a look at how the local bourse closed today, Thursday. All right, some profit taking ahead of the long weekend in anticipation that the central bank will keep rates unchanged later today. Local shares put an end to its 5-day rally, dipping 1 3/10%, sending the index below 7,000 once again to 6,991. That drop most pronounced during the final minutes of trading, as you can see in this chart right here. The PSEi, one of the worst in Asia, where most markets are closed for Chinese New Year. But focusing on what's transpiring here, while the Monetary Board's action is largely expected later today, Philstock's Japitan Chanko says investors will keep a close watch on the BSP's language on inflation. Monetary Board member Felipe Medalla himself said raising rates is not in the picture. He says the BSP has a lot of space to be very accommodative. A number of surveys, in fact, pointing to projections that rates will be maintained. The meeting, of course, set to happen in less than an hour. Let's see how that will pan out. For now, let's zoom in on vehicle sales. That slumped 1 4/10% last month to just 23,380 units sold, according to CAMPI and TMA. That's also a 15% drop from December figures. Commercial vehicles declined 6.4%, while the sale of passenger cars also dropping by as much as 11.5%. CAMPI President Romel Gutierrez remains cautiously optimistic despite the challenges. He says the imposition of provisional safeguards starting next month could actually impact prices. Now, Toyota's local counterpart, GT Capital, saw shares plunge 0.28%. It's now priced at 550 pesos a piece after those car sales figures in January from cars. Let's go on over to media giant ABS-CBN. That's after the House Speaker finally dashing hopes of a franchise renewal for the network. Speaker Lord Alan Velasco says ABS-CBN's franchise application might have to wait until the next Congress after the 2022 polls. He says lawmakers should instead prioritize bills which are part of the president's agenda before he leaves office. That includes economic bills like the Bayanihan 3. Recall that the president a few days back said he will not allow ABS-CBN to operate a free-to-air channel even if it gets to acquire a new franchise. ABS-CBN shares fell 1 6/10% to 12 pesos and 50 centavos on the back of that news there coming from the lower house. And this time to another sector where the president had a bit of a beef with water utilities. Some development on that front. The government has started negotiations with Manila Water over the terms of its revised concession agreement. A Manila Bulletin report quoted Justice Secretary Menardo Guevara saying that the draft of the revised water concession agreement with Manila Water is going to remove onerous provisions from the previous agreement without compromising the economic viability of the concession. The report says negotiations with Maynilad will start after initial deals with Manila Water are settled. After that news, as you can see in this chart right here, Manila Water had a 4 4/10 of an increase here in today's trade. Now with prices now at 16 pesos and 18 centavos a piece. A different story though for Maynilad owners, Metro Pacific and DMCI. Metro Pacific represented by the yellow line here. On the other hand, DMCI, as you can see, represented by the green line. Both stocks in the red, with DMCI down 0.75% and Metro Pacific slipping 1 2/10%. Now, here are other headlines we're keeping our eyes on. The Finance Department is looking at new disaster risk financing options for the country that would not involve any new loans. The DOF said there are now plans to create a regional risk pooling mechanism that would lower costs for developing countries like the Philippines. Such mechanism would allow countries to secure insurance coverage for natural disasters. The Philippines incurred around 177 billion pesos worth of losses every year due to typhoons and earthquakes. The DOF says annual losses may climb to as much as 8 trillion pesos in the next 50 years due to climate change. Now, manufacturing of electric cars may be a possible niche for the Philippines after signing into a 15-country regional trade pact last year. This is according to the Trade Department. Trade Assistant Secretary Alan Gepti said the Philippines must find a competitive advantage that's distinct from its regional peers. He says the country already has strengths in automotive and electronics to be able to tap the e-vehicles market. A roadmap developed by the DTI and the Electronic Vehicles Association of the Philippines is targeting to have EVs grab a 21% share of the car fleet in the country by 2030. The Philippines is also in talks with Indonesia and Vietnam to develop other key industries. All right, cryptocurrencies market value off to new highs. That comes on the heels of Elon Musk's purchase of $1.5 billion of Bitcoin and its acceptance of the currency as a new payment mode. But is this rally sustainable? Now, to discuss that, we have Nichel Gaba, CEO of PDAX. Good afternoon, Nichel. Great to have you on the show once again.
Good afternoon, and thanks for inviting us here.
All right, so the last time we talked, about a few weeks ago, XBT was just at 30,000. The rally now, if I'm not mistaken, at 45,000. Did you see this coming?
Well, it's tough to say that you see the price coming on a week on week off basis. But what's for sure is that there's a lot of corporates and institutions that are no longer in a position to ignore Bitcoin. You mentioned Elon Musk having bought $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin, and they also released a statement that Tesla updated its investment policy to allow for investments into Bitcoin. I think what gets lost in that statement is that they are putting in excess cash into Bitcoin. And if you pay attention to what Michael Saylor of MicroStrategy was saying, it's given today's macroeconomic and monetary environment, it's almost irresponsible for many corporations to still hold substantial amounts of cash. And so Bitcoin, acting as a reserve, can help preserve shareholder value. And that's what we are also seeing with Tesla.
Okay, but at the same time, what's interesting here, although that reached new highs after the Tesla announcement, we can also see prices fizzling a bit here. As you can see, it's still at 45,000 levels, still in the green here. But the question now is it losing momentum?
It's a great question. So I think what's unique about the cryptocurrency market, and this is what makes cryptocurrency markets very difficult to analyze versus the other markets, is that cryptocurrency markets are still immature. Right? Okay. We're still in the process of price discovery. Investors come into the market every day. Right now, the composition of cryptocurrency markets largely comprise retail traders, high net worth individuals, etc., who are in a position to take profits on the rise. Right? So you can see a lot of selling and buying on dips. And so while I do believe that long term, we're going to see a lot of institutions holding Bitcoin, in the short term, we're still going to see a lot of volatility on the way to that.
And how much of a catalyst is Tesla's pronouncements going to be, at least leading to that direction?
Oh, it's definitely huge, right? Because we're talking about Tesla, the biggest car maker, and Elon Musk, the wealthiest person in the world. You can just imagine clients of private banks will have to be asking their advisors, do you have a view on crypto? And it's no longer viable to say, sorry, we're not looking into crypto at all because the world's richest man is in it, right? Mm-hmm. So there's definitely a lot of... so you can actually we're now in the times of post-Elon, right? So there's before Elon and after Elon. I think it's a real game changer in that Bitcoin is now impossible to ignore.
Okay, question now then is, when do you expect other corporations to actually follow suit? And another is, can it get any bigger than Tesla?
obviously, there are a lot of rumors right now circulating about other tech giants coming in. And I'm not going to repeat the names, but you can definitely search who these names are. Um, but I do think that a lot will be coming on board very soon. So remember that most U.S. companies operate off of quarterly plans, right? So given that the macroeconomic backdrop in the U.S. Projects that the monetary supply is going to grow by about 15% every year in this environment, corporate stewards of shareholder wealth are going to have to consider alternatives to holding cash. And I would expect that more companies and more institutions will have to allocate a little bit more exposure to cryptocurrencies if they don't already have it.
Okay, and then Nichel, you yourself alluded to this earlier. Much of the trading, of course, when it comes to Bitcoin, still primarily speculative, and little has been said about how it can be used in daily life. What then has got to change?
Actually, so there's definitely a segment of crypto holders that
Mm-hmm.
believe that Bitcoin is the perfect form of money, right? Like we're gonna buy coffee or meals using Bitcoin. I don't find myself in that camp so much, but that doesn't mean that cryptocurrencies don't have a use. I think what MicroStrategy has done and what Tesla is now doing is that they are actually showing the rest of the world that it has a place as a reserve currency on the balance sheet of most corporations. Um, I would also I think I would also point out that what's the reason why I said that what got lost in the press statement
Mm-hmm.
was this use case of Bitcoin as a reserve currency, because what took a lot of prominence was Tesla is now going to be accepting Bitcoin. Doesn't mean so much that Elon Musk thinks Bitcoin is the perfect form of money, so much as they are also creating more use cases for Bitcoin as they make space for it on their balance sheet.
Okay, how then should investors position on a Bitcoin this year?
What is that? Sorry.
How then should investors at least position themselves when it comes to Bitcoin this year? What is the outlook for the currency, for the cryptocurrency?
Right. So longer term, and again, this is not investment advice, but longer term, there's a lot of confidence that the market cap of Bitcoin will just keep on going up as more and more investors enter into the space. Now, short-term pricing or medium-term pricing, that's more up to debate, and there's gonna still be a lot. There will be a lot of volatility. So, as a retail investor, it can be a responsible thing to do to allocate a small portion of the portfolio, not sell your house and buy Bitcoin, but maybe a small portion where you can tolerate short-term volatility, but at the same time expose yourself to the longer-term potential of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies.
And then lastly, just to close the interview, I mean, there's something you already alluded to earlier, but how long really before we see Bitcoin as a treasury asset, or will it ever get there?
Um, that's a great question. So I think so a lot of people think also that central banks might eventually hold Bitcoin, but I think that the road to that is quite long, right? Because acceptable reserve currencies have to be liquid, have to be acknowledged source of value. Gold fits the bill quite well, and most governments do hold a lot of gold. But for corporations that do not have access to gold, but still need some sort of globally neutral inflation hedge, they can look to Bitcoin. So I'm talking about the private corporations, mainly also in emerging markets where
Mhm.
gold markets haven't penetrated as effectively. And also, there's a lot more upside in holding Bitcoin than it is in holding gold because of the market expansion benefits that tends to accumulate towards the demand side.
Okay, so definitely lots of things to watch out for when it comes to cryptocurrency, specifically Bitcoin, for the year ahead. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon, Nichel Gaba, CEO of PDAX.
Thank you so much.
And those are the biggest news this trading day, February 11, 2021. Catch Business World Live again tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. and 3:15 p.m. I'm Jes Delos Santos. We are One News.